So another category of vectorized operations are the operations which take a vector as an input but return a vector as an output as well. So I can give you some of the examples of such vectorized operations. So uh, in order to implement the very first example, let's quickly create a vector in the first instance, because I don't think these are suitable values, the one on the top, for the example which I want to demonstrate over here. So let's take some smaller values. Let's take values such as 4, 5 and 6. These are small values, so we can very easily see the results which we want to have. So we have created a vector and we have assigned this vector to a value called x. Now we can take this vector and we can use this vector as an input parameter to our factorial operation. So I can do factorial, I can select from IntelliSense and then I can provide fx, and let's say we just execute these two lines of code. So this operation is taking x as an input, which is a vector, and hopefully it will return a vector as an output. So what we are thinking that the output would consist of three elements in the output vector, and those three elements in the output vector will have factorial of 4, factorial of 5 and factorial of 6. So let me execute this, and you can see that the output consists of a vector of three elements. The first one is factorial of 4, which is 24. The second one is factorial of 5, which is 120, and the third one is factorial of 6, which is 720. So we have used a function to basically give an example of a vectorized operation taking vector as an input and returning vector as an output. But apart from this arithmetic function, we can use an arithmetic operator to show a similar kind of behavior where vector is an input to the operation and vector will be returned as an output. So let's take a very simple example where we add a 5 to our vector, and what we'll if we execute this code. Let me just clear the console just to give you a very clear understanding. And now if we execute these three lines of code, what we'll see at the very bottom is a result which is again a vector of three elements, and the first element is basically 9, which is created as a result of adding 5 to the first element of our original vector 4. The second output is 10, which is generated by adding 5 to our second value of the input vector, and the third element of the output vector is generated by adding 5 to the third element of our input vector, which is a 6, and that's 11. So that's the use of arithmetic operator to show a similar behavior. Moreover, we can use a logical operator to show a similar kind of behavior as well. So let's take our very first example where we have created a vector of salaries. Let's take that vector to show that logical operators can show a very same behavior where we provide employee salaries as an input and then we get as an output vector of salaries. So let's say we want to see the salaries, only the salaries of employees who have salaries greater than let's say 1500. So what I can do is I can type in employee salaries, and I can say that give give me only the employee salaries which are greater than 1500. And if I run this, so let me just delete the middle one, or in fact let me just copy this, cut this, paste it over here, and what I'll do is that I'll run, in fact I'll create the console first, and now I'll run these 3 lines of code, and what I can see is, okay, so that is a bit different than what I was expecting, but anyway, I think we can still see an example of a logical operator having employee salaries as an input. And what we can see over here is an output, which is again a list of vectors, but this list of vectors is giving us a list of Boolean values, which is of the same form, so it's definitely a vector. They are all the elements are Boolean values, and it is returning false as the first 2 elements, because the first 2 salaries in the salaries vector are not greater than 1500, so the output is false for the first 2 elements of our input, whereas the output in the second or you can say of the third element of our output vector and the fourth element of our output vector is true, because the input vectors third element and fourth element have salaries higher than criteria, which is 1500. So that's another example where you are providing a vector of values as an input and getting vector of values, different form of values but still values, as an output.